Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and I want to review a movie called Rent a Pal. And honestly, the only reason I watched this movie was because Wil Weaton was in it, and I often watch movies with Star Trek actors because I'm always gathering materials for my hobby of making Star Trek edits and parody mashups and all that kind of stuff. So I'm always looking for new materials that can help me with that, especially if the Star Trek actors are playing villains, and that will give me a lot of good lines. And this movie was perfect for that. There will be a very funny edit with some of the stuff that Wil Wheaton says in this movie. And for some reason, Wil Wheaton is always good playing creepy characters. I don't know why, but I saw him in a bunch of other movies and all kinds of episodes of TV shows playing creepy characters, and he really fits that kind of role for some reason. So it was very good and funny, in my opinion, maybe because I know him as Wesley Crusher, and so seeing him as a villain is always funny to me. So this movie to me was a complete comedy. There are a few scenes in which I laughed out loud harder than I laughed in years, probably, and this movie is not even classified as a comedy. And if you look it up on IMDb, it says this movie is horror and thriller, and definitely it has those elements, and definitely it's very dark and creepy. But to me, it was always funny. Maybe because I was always a fan of dark comedy. And so I personally love this movie, and it also has this unique idea of someone becoming best friends with a videotape, basically, which is pretending to be interactive with you, which I found out only after watching this movie. It's actually based on a real thing. There was an actual tape like that called Rent a Friend, and I saw it on YouTube after watching the movie, and so it was really funny to me. And there are a lot of similarities. They were obviously inspired by that because there are a lot of lines and moments and all kinds of things that happen in the tape that they did exactly the same thing in the movie. And I think that original tape is even creepier in some ways, even though that guy who made it, I found him on some YouTube channel, and he seems like a normal guy. So that's a relief, I guess, because he kind of looks like a serial killer in that original tape. And it was made, back in the 80s, in the era of VHS tapes, when people were making tapes about absolutely anything they can think of to try to sell something. And so it was kind of a unique idea of someone making a tape of himself pretending to be your friend and looking at you through the TV. And there are moments when he comes closer to you and asks to take a look at your apartment, and then he kind of looks inside through the TV and pretends to react to what he sees, and there are conversations he has with you, and he pretends to listen to you and respond to what you say. And so it was extremely creepy, and obviously it gave someone the idea to make this horror movie out of it, and they took direct moments, direct lines from that tape into the movie, and of course they added some twists on it which made it more interesting. And so this was kind of a very unique idea that I haven't really seen before. It kind of reminds me of that horror movie The Ring, when that scary girl was coming out of the TV. It is similar to all kinds of ideas like that, but this specific idea I never saw in a movie before, and so it was interesting. It was kind of a psychological thriller, and you're trying to figure out where it's going, how it's going to end, what is happening. And there are a lot of funny moments as well, and so I was really entertained by this movie. And also it has a lot of nostalgia because it shows you the era of VHS tapes before the internet, and so this poor nerdy guy is basically going to this video service in which they're trying to match couples together. It's like Tinder before there was an internet, before any dating websites, that they all record the video of themselves and watch other people's videos, and if they like each other, then the agency would match them up. And so it was really funny to see that. And then he finds this tape of Wil Wheaton, who is not trying to date anyone. It's just a tape in which he pretends to be your friend, and because this nerdy guy is so lonely, he couldn't match with anyone, and so he starts playing along, and so he kind of becomes his best friend in his mind, and it becomes weirder and weirder as it goes. And the tape seems to actually be interactive, meaning over time it starts more and more to seem as if Wil Wheaton is actually responding to what he says and reacting to what he does, and so it becomes weirder and weirder, and it's not clear at first what exactly is happening. Is something mystical happening? Is it something fantastical? Is it an elaborate prank? Or is it all in the mind of David, who is the one watching the video? And so it's not clear until the end, I guess, and so that was part of the mystery, that it kept getting weirder and weirder. And Wil Weaton was hilarious. There are all kinds of moments in which he gets pissed off, and even when he's on pause and it starts out with him smiling, but then he sees something he doesn't like, and his smile gradually fades and he becomes angry. And all those moments of Wil Weaton acting creepy were just extremely funny to me. I really laughed a lot in those scenes. And speaking of the original tape, which was even creepier in some ways because the guy in it looked kind of evil and the way he looks at you and stuff like that was really creepy. And the whole idea of it is so strange because it's obviously aimed at people who have no actual friends, and so it's kind of sad that someone would actually watch it and pretend to talk with the TV as if it's actually your friend, and the guy in the TV is saying all kinds of strange stuff, telling about himself, showing his photos, taking selfies with you, and all kinds of strange things that make no sense. But you know, the more I thought about it, I realized it's actually kind of the same as what happened later with YouTube. Like when people became vloggers and started talking with their audience, it's basically the same thing, only this one happened before there was an internet. It's like a prototype of a vlog before there was an internet, and so he pretends it to be interactive, and obviously there is no real interaction, unlike in the internet in which you can actually interact with your audience. So it's not as creepy, but it's kind of similar. So I view it as almost like a prototype of what happened later with the internet and YouTube and all of that. And so I thought it's interesting that they kind of predicted it, of how people will actually interact with other people through view screens later on. Obviously the creepy element is because there is no real interaction, and so you just imagine the other person will play along with you, and so that's why it's so creepy. And that whole original video is like 45 minutes long, and it's all in one take. There is only one cut in the middle when suddenly his phone rings and he has to answer it and put it down, and it cuts for a second to the phone. And I think the only reason they did that was to give him a break in the middle, like that it wouldn't have to be all in one cut. And so to arrange this break for the actor, they had to pretend his phone is ringing so that it can focus on the phone for a second. And that exact moment also happened inside of Wil Wheaton's recording inside this movie, and there is no explanation for it, and there's a lot of kind of strange, weird things that he says and does with no actual explanation. And the more the movie develops, the weirder it gets. And the main character, David, obviously starts getting obsessed about it, and he gives up actual dates with actual women to stay home with his new best friend, Wil Weaton. And he's taking care of his demented mother. That's why he had to stay at home all the time. That's why he had no friends. And he tells all kinds of embarrassing stories to Wil Wheaton through the screen, and it had some hilarious moments. There are moments which are kind of sad, but also funny at the same time. At least to me, because I like dark comedy, and so I found it funny and hilarious, and there will be a really funny edit with some of Wil Wheaton's stuff intertwined with Star Trek in the very near future. So I'll put a link to it in the end after I finish making that other video. So that's all I really want to say, because I don't want to spoil this movie for anyone who still wants to watch it. So I do recommend it a lot, and after watching this movie you should watch the original video on YouTube called Rent a Friend, which I thought was hilarious as well after watching the movie, and especially to notice all the many little things they borrowed from it. It's almost like plagiarism, the amount of little things they took from that original video into the movie, and I'm not sure they got permission to do it, but the whole thing is hilarious in my opinion, the way that someone must have watched that original movie and thought it was creepy, and that gave them the idea to make this horror movie out of it, which turned out to be more of a comedy in my opinion. So that's all I have to say about it for today. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss it in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.